This is my personal pedal board right here. What I wanted to do with this one, they were trying to play it up, is like, this is my secret formula. So my signal chain starts with the tuner. I have my drive section. I have my creative delay. I have my chorus. I have my two other delays, the magnetic drum and the bucket brigade. And I finish the signal with a tremolo and a reverb. Yeah, if you use this pedal board, you're gonna make $10,000 a month and make Jeff Bezos look poor. That's gonna get me flagged. Welcome to Tone Time with Tom here at JK Not Kidding Studios, just out of Detroit, Michigan. Today I have something fun to talk about that I love, pedals. Here I am, you're listening to me talk about pedals again, but that's okay, because I love to do it. And today's a special fun one because it's very personal to me. I'm giving away all my secrets. This is my personal pedal board right here. This is what I use as a clean slate for anything I'm gonna do, whether it's a gig or a session here in the studio. Okay, so I'm gonna go down the line here, show you what each pedal is, how I typically use it, what my kind of stock settings might be, and then how I might adjust them on the fly if I want to add or subtract something. I'm going to go in order here on what I'm doing. I don't have any buffers. I don't have any bypass loopers. It's just straight through, kind of more old school at this point. So first thing I have here is a TC Electronics Polytune 2. The next thing here is a Walrus Audio Messner. This is a light overdrive. The next thing I have here is the Jext Telez Rangelord. If you watched episode 1, you know that I talked about this a lot, so check that out. The second pedal here is a Kalamazoo by Lovepedal. This is another Michigan brand, actually. And I think there's a theme here. I have the third pedal, not purposely, Red Panda Particle, another Detroit brand. This is a delay, I'll call it. I'll get into a little bit more what that means. So the signal chain then falls from this up to the top here. I have the Moog MF Chorus, then the Donner Prince Electronics Boonar, which is a delay, then the Moog MF Delay, and lastly, the Strymon Flint, always on my pedal board. It is a tremolo and a reverb. The power supply I'm using here is the Strymon Zume. It is a great supply, 500 milliamps across all the channels. Doesn't make me have to think about where I want to route things. It's just works. I'm using Divine Noise cables going into the pedal board and out to the amp. And then on the pedal board, I have Mogami cable. I used to use those George L cables. They were really great for the custom length, but ultimately I found that they were too intermittent the more you moved your pedal board around, so I had to just get rid of them. All right, so I'm gonna go through each of these pedals in a little more detail and give you some sound samples of what each one of those do. So first one, probably the most important, this Polytune 2 Mini. Had it for a while. It always works well for me. I'm a colorblind person, so I do not ever tune this as one, right? Some of you might love this idea. I play in a band with a guy who he strums all the strings and he can tune them individually. I can't really see that well. For those who like to tune quickly, that could be a great thing. I can tune just quick enough by doing my single strings, and this works really well for me. Anybody else who actually might be colorblind out there, I recently used a Boss tuner for a gig, and on stage, I could hardly see it, which was surprising to me because I always heard Boss was really bright, but this to me is a lot easier to see. So just a little tidbit there. Pretty straightforward thing here, but I think it's pretty important that you stay in tune. So I'm gonna do that right now before I give you any more. Next pedal, first pedal, if you want to call it that, is this Messner Overdrive by Walrus Audio. It is a light overdrive pedal. That's kind of the way they pitch it. And it very much is that. It does not have a lot of gain on tap, but that's actually fine. I have found that it sounds really similar to if I were to just walk over to my amp and knock it up 2 or 3 notches. It does that really well. So I find that sweet spot on what my clean sound is and just give it a little bit of extra love with this. Let's hear how that sounds now. The clean sound now. Playing through a super reverb. It's mic'd up with 2 mics. We have our AKG 451, our winner from our second video, and then we also have an SM57 on that. Got this Nash Jazzmaster. The amp has a little bit of reverb on there. I typically like to leave just a little bit of reverb on the amp. That's the way I've kind of built the way I play. It's about 2.5, 3, just in that sweet spot on a Fender where it can be a little bit to too much quickly. So it's right in that range. Clean tone again. Here's with this pedal. Pretty subtle. I'm gonna give it a little bit more with this guitar. It kind of likes this range. So you can hear it's not a lot, but that's the point. It is a light overdrive. This pedal is not going to get to any searing territory. It isn't built that way. I can crank it up. It's not going to be over the top. The middle knob is great. The color, it is just pretty much mid-range. So where the mid-range frequency boosts, there is this toggle for more closed or open compression. I leave it open because it just sounds more natural. As you can see, I have some tape on here on some of these. I like to have the tape there. It just kind of gives me a visual of around where I should be in case I bump it in transit before playing a gig or something, because that way I can eyeball where I'm supposed to be. Going down the line, I have this Jext Telez Range Lord, locally made here in Michigan, based on the Rangemaster, a really famous pedal from the late 60s, the treble booster. If you want more info on that one, like I said, check out our video, Tone Time episode 1. This is a great booster the way I have it set up right now. On its own, it can seem a little bit just mid-range heavy, but when you start to stack these pedals together, this one kind of really pushes it over the top. I'll show you what that sounds like right now, kind of clean. So kind of raunchy sounding. It sounds awesome. Now if I play it with this other one, depending on the type of part I might want, it could sound like this. Still pretty kind of raunchy, grindy sound. But the beauty of this Range Lord is it helps you cut right through a dense mix, so it's really nice for that. But what I like about this order is what I'll show you next. I have this Kalamazoo by Lovepedal, also locally made here in Michigan, I think White Lake, Michigan. Quote me if I'm wrong here, but what I'm hearing out of this is like a Marshall overdrive sound. Typically using it for just like heavier, fuller gain. You know, there's not much clean here. It's very extreme. I have the glass knob turned all the way up and the tone pretty high. It still feels kind of dark to me, but it can often sit nicely. So I've found that when I'm playing a live gig, if I have a heavily distorted tone and I don't want to be way up front, I can roll this back and actually sit behind a little bit and let the lead player be able to do what they need with a more piercing mid-range sound. So it actually works, even though right now I'm thinking, man, this sounds kind of dark. You know, this is where I have it. The gain is kind of right up the middle. So if I turn the glass up more, and the tone, it's like, what I found is like it works really nice for a rhythm sound. But if I wanted to get into a lead thing, I can use this Rangemaster and it just really pushes it over the edge in a good way. So let's hear it. What I like about this setup is really playing in front of the amp. When I turn on that Range Lord, there's so much harmonic overdrive happening from the amp. You can really play off it in a fun way and kind of get feedback going. Kind of old school Hendrixy thing where you can get this really beautiful symbiotic relationship while standing in front of the amp. As you can see, like I'm giving you a little taste of what each of these pedals does, but really in a mix or in a live setting, whatever you're playing to, you adjust based on where you're trying to fit. I mean, we all know here we love pedals, but inherently it has to fit in a song. And so that's where it's allowing me like light gain, medium gain, heavy gain, and being able to stack that for certain parts, for example. So getting into now more time-based things, what I have next is the Red Panda Particle version 2. This is a Detroit-based company. They have really great stuff. I have a bunch of their things, but the Particle never leaves my pedal board. I can sometimes change out these first three if I really am feeling inclined for a different flavor, but typically the latter 5 here don't change. Most of these have been on here for a long time. I know them really well and I like what they do, so I don't have to change them. The Particle is a granular delay. What I love about it is it's unpredictable. I've had it for a long time. I pretty much know what it's going to do, but there is always something about it that's unpredictable, and I love that. The way you set this middle knob here at the top, the chop knob, you know, it starts to freeze at a certain place, how the feedback and the delay knob and the parameter knob kind of all interact. It changes based on the delay setting you use. So that's cool, but then you have to remember kind of what each one does. And you don't necessarily have to. Part of the fun is just turning the knobs. I have a reverse setting that I like to use a lot in this general area. So I'll show you what that sounds like. So it's kind of slow right now. I could freeze it. I can choose to kind of freeze it whenever I want. If I want to freeze it off the top when I hit the note, or like I did there where I just kind of picked a random place and it froze that moment in time, which I find really interesting. I can do a tap tempo. So if I'm playing a gig and the drummer kind of clicks it in, and if I don't know exactly where my knob is set, I could just choose to pick the tempo he clicks in and then I have it. So this was a fun one because I'm just on the edge of that freeze. If I turn it up a little bit, it'll freeze in a certain place, the hardest note that I pick. So I don't think it's quite high enough yet. Yeah, so it's doing it there. So I could play underneath this. If I play something louder, it's gonna freeze that. You can adjust the time like any other delay. So what's happening now, I think with the parameter setting on the reverse, the repeat can go reverse first or forward first. And depending on where this is, it flip-flops that. So now it's forward first, and before I had it on reverse first. This is a pretty stock setting for me on this pedal. This is kind of where my home base would be. I don't really use a lot of other settings on this, frankly. I sometimes will use the density mode, which is a more typical granular delay. So here's what that sounds like. If I were to turn it on. This is doing so. So I'm getting kind of lost in this right now because I'm having fun, but I think what you can see is that there's a lot there. So next one of the best chorus pedals I've ever played. It is a true analog chorus, the Moog Chorus, the MF Chorus, Mini Foger, I think they call them. It's hard to beat anything that Moog does. This can be really extreme, but also just the subtlety that it has is really great. So I'll show you what this sounds like. So lower toggle is like lighter chorus, middle toggle is more thicker chorus, warmer, I don't know what they call it exactly. If I go up, it turns to vibrato, so that's kind of just a whole nother thing. So let's hear what it sounds like. It's a pretty subtle thing right now. I'm gonna turn the depth up, giving a little bit more. This is probably a very normal setting I would use for a song. I mean, it's pretty subtle, right? But just adding a little bit of movement. If I turn the feedback up, it gets a little bit more shrilly sounding, I think. Let's see how it sounds. It's getting into like flangery kind of swooping comb filter thing. Ton of sounds on this. I think it works really well for what it does. Some of the more extreme settings can be a little harder to use, but it's great for what those are. Next pedal I have here is a really fun one that I've had for a long time, the Boonar by Donner Prince Electronics. And what is this exactly? It is a delay pedal. It's an Echorec copy, a Binson Echorec made in Italy. It's not a tape echo. It's a drum echo, magnetic drum, spins in a circle, and the whatever they're called, because there's no tape, spin around that. That's this gist of what I know about it, comparing it to a true tape echo, but it has a different sound, and what does that matter? That's what Pink Floyd used. So it was good enough for me to try to find a replica of that sound. And David Gilmour himself uses this pedal. So another reason why I was like, this is the one I need to buy. I've had this for a while. It is really interesting the way it sounds. It doesn't sound like a tape delay because it's not. It's sounding kind of unique. And I'll show you the settings I kind of have right now and how I might use them. So as a typical delay sound, let's hear what this sounds like. So pretty subtle in the sense that there's not a lot of repeats, so it'll get out of the way if I'm playing a lot of fast stuff, which I might be doing for certain gigs where I don't want a lot of that muddy feedback just to go on forever, but it adds a depth to it. The cool thing about this pedal, one of the things I really like, is this other knob, the swell/repeat switch, adds almost like a reverb quality, and what I think the original units did would feed back the sound through all 4 tape heads again, and that's where we get this, I'll call it reverb. So, because here it is without that, and now with. It kind of fills it out in a different way. I like that to add more space to my sound if I'm playing maybe a rhythm part where I want to thicken it up, but I still don't want all those repeats like I mentioned. The 4 buttons are the playback heads. So I'll show you, let's see if we can hear how that sounds. So I turned up the treble, and the treble actually causes the delay to feedback faster if you crank the treble, so the knobs interact, whereas the swell knob is like the feedback, the amount of feedback. So I'll go back a little bit. So it's half of that one. So now if I go here, having it on the 2 and 4 setting just adds kind of a musical ambience to the sound, right? It's just adding a little bit of texture, a little bit of layer. The 1 and 3 setting, it's a little bit more specific with the way it's repeating. So I may or may not choose to have that in a song. It might step on toes of other things. But inherently, this pedal is a lot of fun. It's very musical. It's very organic sounding. I think that's why I've always loved it. And it is kind of different. I mean, tape delays are great. Clones are great. But they have a specific thing, and this just sounds different. So next pedal I have here, another great pedal from Moog, the MF Delay. This one I typically leave in a slapback type setting. So really warm repeats on this pedal. I think inherently it's very musical because that organic quality of it. One thing that's really kind of fun about this pedal is it has a ton of drive in it. It's not very subtle. It gets pretty extreme quick, but I'll just, where this is at now. That can be a fun setting. It's kind of immediately making me think of the Brian Jonestown Massacre, kind of that psychedelic rock stuff. You can use this as a drive pedal if you turn the mix all the way down so there's no delay. So you can get this pretty raunchy sound. So that's kind of a fun thing to have in the studio if I want a different type of drive sound that I don't have necessarily here. So the last pedal I have is the Strymon Flint. I bought this when it came out, and I don't think it's ever left my pedal board, whether it's the smaller version or the huge one I used to have. I remember buying this, I think it was 2012, which is pretty funny. So it's been a while now. It's great. It has tremolo, it has reverb. There's 3 settings for each one, and they're all great. The reverb I typically use is the 70s reverb, which is a plate sound. I have it set relatively subtle. I have a little reverb already on my amp, spring reverb, but then this just kind of pushes it over the edge for me for a little more space. The mix can get really extreme. Same with the decay. I know I spent an afternoon one time at my house trying to dial a setting on this that matched the spring reverb sound on a Fender as far as like where the color and the decay was. And it can get there pretty close, and it's almost indistinguishable at some point, despite just like the metallic quality. If you hit a true analog reverb tank, it does something a little bit different. But this pedal sounds great. The hall is good. Let's try that. That's the 80 setting, or was I on the 80 setting? So I lied to you before. I was on the hall all that time. 70s, that's the plate. So it is a lot more subtle. And then the 60s is the spring. So pretty close. And you can hear that spring kind of quality. All right, as far as tremolo, there's the 3 modes. I use this one a lot. The photo trem, intensity all the way up, speed. Let's see if... I love intense sounding tremolos when they're really extreme. Another beautiful quality on this thing is the harmonic tremolo. I love that one. It's more of the univibe type sound. I know it's not the same, but it's similar if you want that flavor. So I find that setting to be super musical, and I would use that a lot. Almost subtle sometimes in a mix to just kind of thicken up maybe a rhythm part on a double, or something that's hard panned, maybe left or right. You have dry on the one side, maybe a small amount of this tremolo on the right side or left side, whatever I didn't say. Thanks for tuning in on this one. This was fun. It's funny to me. This is my pedal board. Like I said, it feels very personal because it is. I've curated this arrangement over many years of different sessions, different gigs. So I'd love to hear what you're using. Tell me your pedal board setup. Tell me why it's working for you. Tell me why you think mine is wrong, because I'd love to know. I get made fun of sometimes for having 3 delay pedals because, you know, why do you need 3? It's because I want 3. Have you found something better than maybe what I have here? I love this Moog delay, but it's missing the chorus effect, the modulation that I would love. Is there a good Bucket Brigade delay that has the sonic quality of this Moog but has that modulation? Is it the tonal recall? Tell me. Is it the tonal recall? It's expensive, but I don't know if I want to buy one. So all the people out there, all you Chase Bliss lovers, tell me, is that it? And maybe I'll finally get one. Please like and subscribe to our channel to get more content like this. It gives us an opportunity to make more fun videos. It'll show us what kind of stuff you guys are all gravitating towards. If you want to hear me talk about more pedals, I'd be happy to do it. I have plenty. You're going to love what you're going to hear. So thanks. It's Tone Time with Tom. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you later.